All right, Shalom. I want to give all the praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who taught me this truth. Shalom to the hopeful elect. U.S. troops will be food for sharks. Iran warns amid possible ground war. This is 2 Ezra 15 and verse 28. And it reads, Behold, in horrible vision, and the appearance thereof from the east, okay, the so-called Middle East, Western Asia, all right, the location of end-time prophecy. Verse 29, where the nations of the dragons of Arabia shall come out with many chariots, and the multitude of them shall be carried as the wind upon earth, that all they which hear them may fear and tremble. Also the Carmenians, okay, the Iranians, the Persians, right? Also the Carmenians, raging in wrath, shall go forth as wild boars of the wood. And with great power shall they come and join battle with them, and shall waste a portion of the land of the Assyrians, all right? Because America is going to see a war, man. Right? And then shall the dragons have the upper hand, remembering their nature. And if they should turn themselves, conspiring together in great power to persecute them. Right?
Trump, the President of the United States, has repeatedly threatened Iran with a ground operation and the occupation of certain islands in the Persian Gulf. There is no doubt that the President of the United States has become a pawn of the Prime Minister of the Zionist regime in the war of aggression against Iran, driven by pressure from the terrorist organization Mossad, exploiting his background in the Epstein case. The President of the United States, known as the most dishonest president in the world and lacking any intellectual or discursive stability, is utterly untrustworthy. Unfortunately, America's leaders have delegated command of the armed forces to someone whose erratic positions and dangerous, wrong-headed decisions have plunged the U.S. military into a swamp of death. Trump, whose commanders and soldiers are grappling with death daily in the region due to their fear of being killed, have fled from destroyed bases and taken refuge in the service, population, and economic centers of regional countries, and of course will be targeted there as well. He and his senior commanders of the crumbling American army expect resistance from commanders and soldiers on battlefields thousands of kilometers away. Trump drums up a threatening topic one morning and backs down the same evening. He talks about negotiations one moment and decides to escalate the war a few hours later. This unstable and deceitful individual has inflicted immense damage on the people of America, Europe, and countries around the world, especially those in the Middle East. The President of the United States has proven that the only language he understands is the language of force. In response to Trump's recent threats of a ground operation or the occupation of any part of Iranian territory, which are nothing more than wishful thinking, we declare that the warriors of Islam have long awaited such actions. They will show that aggression and occupation lead only to the humiliating capture, dismemberment, and disappearance of the aggressors. American commanders and soldiers will become good food for the sharks of the Persian Gulf. It would be better if Trump and the leaders and commanders of the U.S. military studied the history of Iran once and learned a lesson from the valiant Iranian people's confrontations with aggressors throughout history, and did not lead their soldiers into captivity and death within the delusional circle of the unstable American president, nor turn the American people into mourners on a wide scale. The powerful Iranian armed forces will eagerly await the moment to obliterate your army if the American president's threat, an embodiment of delusion and lies, is carried out.
Yeah, that's heavy. Real quick, he made a point about great death in the Persian Gulf, but I want to grab what he said about Esau in Psalm 58. As we all know, All right, this man is the sword. All right, Psalms 58 and verse 2. All right, Psalms 58 verse 2. Yea, in heart ye work wickedness, ye weigh the violence of your hands in the earth. All right, he's the man of war. All right, the wicked and violent man. Okay, that seeks disturbances and wars. Habakkuk 2, 4, and 5. Right, verse 3. The wicked are estranged from the womb. They go astray as soon as they be born, speaking lies. All right, and he's been speaking lies as he was talking about negotiating, but at the same time, they're dropping bombs. All right, he's being exposed as a hypocrite, a liar. All right, a deceitful man, as he said. Right now, back in the caption here, right, it said tensions between Iran and the United States continue to escalate as Iranian military spokesperson issued a stark warning to American troops, saying they will become food for the sharks of the Persian Gulf if a ground operation is launched, right? So he said there was going to be a lot of death in the Persian Gulf, right? Joel, the 2nd chapter. Okay, this is Joel 2 and 20. But I will remove far off from you the northern army, that's the American military, right? And will drive them into a land barren and desolate, right? Going into the region of Saudi Arabia. Okay, it says, and I will drive into a land barren and desolate, with his face toward the East Sea. All right, going into to Iran, the Persian Gulf, that region there, and his hinder part toward the utmost sea. All right, going into the Red Sea. Okay, and his stink shall come up, and his ill savior shall come up, because he have done great things. Right, that's going into those mass casualties, man. Those bodies. There's gonna be a lot of death in that region of the Persian Gulf, Iran. Okay, the Strait of Hormuz. All right, the Red Sea. That region is gonna get active, man. All right, NLT. I will drive away these armies from the north. I will send them into parched wastelands. Those in front will be driven into the Dead Sea, and those at the rear into the Mediterranean. The stench of the rotting bodies will rise over the land. Surely the Lord Yahweh Shemel Shai has done great things, man. So it's getting ready to get escalated, as we are reading about here, as we heard. All right.
Meanwhile, the Pentagon is reportedly preparing for weeks of ground operations in Iran as 3,500 American troops arrive in the Middle East.
Trey Yanks is live in Tel Aviv with the latest. Trey, good morning.
Yeah, hey guys, good morning. After 4 weeks of war in the Middle East, the conflict grinds on. Reports indicate the United States is preparing for possible weeks of ground operations inside of Iran that would include thousands of U.S. service members. Over the weekend, the USS Tripoli, manned with 3,500 troops, including 2,500 Marines, arrived in the CENTCOM area of operation. If an operation is ordered to seize Iranian oil facilities or enriched uranium, it's expected that both special forces and conventional forces would be used. This does come as the United States and Israel launched a series of strikes against Iranian military infrastructure over the weekend, including hitting Iran's nuclear development facilities.
In Operation Rising Lion, we hit very hard the entire chain of nuclear production in Iran. We hit everything from the production capabilities in the factories, all the components, to the centrifuges and beams, and so on. The entire production chain was hit. It was affected. It was delayed, but it was not completely destroyed.
With the Israelis looking east, they're also looking north to the Iran-backed Lebanese militant group Hezbollah. You can see some ground forces that are going from northern Israel into southern Lebanon. Just over the weekend, that U.S.-born Israeli soldier, 22 years old, killed in a Hezbollah rocket attack. Hezbollah has continued to launch dozens of rockets over the border into northern Israel each and every day. And the Israelis today say that they last night went into southern Lebanon through southern Syria, an indication that they are taking the fight to Hezbollah through multiple different fronts into southern Lebanon. All of this coming as the Iran-backed Houthis in Yemen got involved in the fight over the weekend, launching at least one ballistic missile into Israel. Guys?
All right. Thanks, Trey. Trey Yanks, thank you very much.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Bright.
Going down. All right, it's from political.com. He lied about everything. Iran war puts Trump on shaky ground with young MAGA men. Their frustrations and anger with conflict were on full display at CPAC this week, right? So yeah, as we talked about, his fan base is collapsing. The MAGA, all right, they no longer believe in him. They're coming against him, and this is pretty much why, as we're seeing now, with this No Kings protest I got pulled up here, right? All right, it's millions of people all over America protesting against this war, what's going on in Iran, what's happening in America, the rising cost of living, everything, man. And these are the part of the signs of the end. All right, the end is manifest, as we talked about yesterday, right? 2 Esdras 9:1, he answered me then and said, measure thou the time diligently in itself, and when thou seest part of the signs pass, which I have told thee before, then shalt thou understand that it is the very same time wherein the highest will begin to visit the world which he made, right? Therefore, when there should be seen earthquakes and uproars of the people in the world, then shalt thou well understand that the Most High spoke of those things from the days that were before thee, even from the beginning. For like as all that is made in the world have a beginning and the end is manifest, right? This is in all 50 states. Protesters oppose immigration, rising cost of living, Iran war. Yeah, check that out. All right. It says shame. Scriptures say great shame shall be upon that glory. You know, shameful spearing. Let me see. Can I go back? Shame. See that?
I need this administration to know that many people in this country are not happy, and we want change. We need change because this is not America. This is not the America I know. I want my America back.
Yeah, every 4 years, you dumbass Americans still don't get it. All right, the same results. Nothing changes. All right. But again, the uproars of the people in the world. All right, the signs of the end. This place is through.
Joining me now from the rally in St. Paul, Minnesota is Ezra Levin. He is the co-executive director of Indivisible, the primary organizer behind the No Kings protest. Man, Ezra, just incredible to see. Bruce, your reaction to what's happening on the ground there today.
Oh my gosh, Jacob, I don't think you've lived until you've been in a crowd of 150 to 200,000 people listening to Bruce Springsteen sing.
Hey, that's the spirit. His name was Ezra. We would just read Second Ezra's. All right, who was Ezra? Okay, spirit. All right. Hey, verse 3. Therefore, when there should be seen earthquakes and uproars of the people in the world, okay, all over, this thing's about to collapse. All right, bear with me 1 second. Right here.
A song about the courage of those people in beating back an authoritarian force. It was emotional, it was powerful, it was inspiring. And I gotta say, you described me as a lead organizer. This is way bigger than me, way bigger than Indivisible, way bigger than any organization. This is millions of people around the world, literally on every single continent, in 3,300 protests around the world, demonstrating their own leadership, their own courage, and their own joy, as you see behind me.
Ezra, first time around in June, numbers were around 5 million and 7 million in October. You just used the word millions. Any indication of how big or how much bigger the crowd is this time around?
I mean, bigger, Jacob. That's what I'll tell you. So we had 2,100 protests for the first No Kings rallies in June of last year. Then we had 2,700 protests all around the world for No Kings 2. More than 3,300 protests all around the world this time. If Minneapolis and the Twin Cities and St. Paul are an indication of this, it's bigger all around the world. It's quite a sight to see.
You know, I was on the ground there in Minneapolis. I was there actually 3 times over the course of Greg Bavino's reign of terror, as it were, and it has been more than 2 months since the deaths of Alex Preddy and Renee Nicole Good there in Minneapolis. Well, what are you seeing in terms of the crowd honoring them as they march and they rally today, Ezra?
There's a reason why St. Paul, the Twin Cities, is the flagship event right now, because at the same time that we're seeing the most horrific, sadistic behavior coming out of this White House, it is being met here in Minnesota by the most humane, most neighborly, most courageous displays of patriotism that you can imagine. I'm seeing signs, I'm seeing memories shared, I'm seeing stories told about Alex Preddy, about Renee Good. They are a source of inspiration for literally everybody here, and we're trying to build on what they were doing. They were trying to stand up for their community, to protect it from a secret police force, to use their First Amendment rights to protect their neighbors. That's what we're...
Yeah, so you get it. Let's see if there's anything else. Okay, again, uproars, sedition of men. All right, it's all bubbling up. Okay. Isaiah 19:2, and it reads, "And I will set the Egyptians against the Egyptians, and they shall fight every one against his brother, and everyone against his neighbor, city against city, and kingdom against kingdom." All right. Great division. All right, it's happening right here in America. All right. Neighbor against neighbor. Just wanted to look up something real quick. See if we got anything that stood out. All right, but you get it. All right, this is where we at. Let's see what else we got here. Yeah, that's the point, man. So, right to it. So, hey, it's going down. Nuclear war. Okay, Iranian aggression. All right, boots on the ground. Okay, mass death in that region of Western Asia, the so-called Middle East. Shalom.